My parents refused to support my college dreams and let my brother tear up my acceptance letter, so I moved out. I went top college anyway and now they want me back to fix my brother's problems. I'm Malcolm, 18M, and I need to get this off my chest because I don't know what to do anymore. My whole family has turned against me over something that should have been the happiest moment of my life. Let me give you some background first. I live with my parents Preston, 52M, and Margot, 48F, and my younger brother Sullivan, 16M. We've never been a close family, but things got really bad after my dad lost his job 2 years ago. He started drinking more and my mom became obsessed with saving money. Sullivan has always been the golden child. He plays football, gets decent grades without trying, and somehow never gets in trouble no matter what he does. I've been working part-time at a grocery store since I was 16 to save up for college. My parents never offered to help with college expenses. They kept saying I needed to figure it out myself if I wanted to go. I applied for every scholarship I could find and worked extra shifts to save money. My grades have always been good. I maintained a 3.8 GPA while working 20 hours a week. Last month, I got the letter I've been waiting for. I was accepted to State University with a partial scholarship that would cover about 60% of my tuition. I was so excited that I left the letter on the kitchen counter while I went to take a shower. When I came back downstairs, Sullivan was holding the letter and grinning. He said he was just reading it to see what all the fuss was about. Then he did something I still can't believe. He tore the letter in half right in front of me. Just ripped it down the middle and dropped the pieces on the floor. He said I was stupid if I thought our parents would let me go to college when they couldn't even afford to fix the roof. I picked up the pieces and told him he had no right to touch my mail. He laughed and said it didn't matter because I'd never actually go anyway. I was holding the torn pieces when my parents walked into the kitchen. My dad saw what was happening and asked what was going on. I explained that Sullivan had destroyed my acceptance letter. I showed them the torn pieces and told them exactly what happened. Instead of getting mad at Sullivan, my mom just sighed and said maybe it was for the best. She said we couldn't afford to send me to college anyway and I was being unrealistic. My dad nodded and said I should focus on getting a full-time job instead of wasting time with college dreams. Then he looked at Sullivan and told him he shouldn't have torn up the letter, but he said it like he was telling him not to leave dishes in the sink. No real consequence, no apology required. Sullivan just shrugged and said he was trying to help me face reality. My mom actually agreed with him. She said I was living in a fantasy world if I thought they could support me through college. The partial scholarship wasn't enough, and they weren't going to co-sign loans or help with living expenses. I told them I had been planning to work and take out loans for the rest. I had already researched everything and made a budget. I could make it work if I kept my grocery store job and maybe picked up more hours. My mom shook her head and said I was being selfish. She said if I went to college, I wouldn't be able to help with household expenses anymore. That's when I realized what this was really about. They didn't want me to leave because they needed my paycheck. I've been contributing about $400 a month to help with bills since my dad's hours got cut. They were worried about losing that income. I asked them directly if that was the reason they didn't want me to go to college. My dad got angry and said I was being disrespectful for even suggesting such a thing. But neither of them denied it. My mom just said families need to stick together and help each other out. Sullivan was still standing there with that smug look on his face. He said I was being dramatic about a stupid piece of paper. He said I could just call the college and get another copy if I really wanted to. But that wasn't the point. The point was that he had destroyed something important to me and our parents didn't care. I went upstairs and called the university admissions office. They said they could send me another copy of the acceptance letter, but I would need to confirm my enrollment by the deadline or lose my spot. The deadline was only 3 weeks away, and I still needed to figure out housing and financial aid paperwork. For the next few days, our house was tense. Sullivan acted like nothing had happened. He went to football practice, hung out with his friends, and played video games like usual. My parents didn't bring up the college thing again, but I could tell they expected me to just drop it and move on. I kept working on my college plans anyway. I filled out more financial aid forms and researched student housing options. I even looked into getting a second job near campus. But every time I tried to talk to my parents about it, they shut me down. My mom would change the subject or find some chore for me to do. My dad would just walk away. One evening, I overheard my parents talking in their bedroom. My mom was saying she was relieved that I seemed to be giving up on the college idea. My dad agreed and said it would be better for everyone if I just stayed home and kept working. They talked about how they could really use the extra money, especially with Sullivan wanting a car next year. That conversation made it clear that they had never intended to support my college plans. They were hoping I would just give up on my own so they wouldn't have to be the bad guys who said no directly. Sullivan destroying the letter was actually convenient for them because it gave them an excuse to discourage me without looking like they were standing in my way. The next morning at breakfast, Sullivan made another comment about how I was wasting my time with college applications. He said I should just accept that some people aren't meant for higher education. My mom didn't say anything to stop him. My dad was reading his phone and pretended not to hear. I realized then that nothing was going to change. They had made up their minds about what my future should look like, and my own goals didn't matter to them. Sullivan could destroy my things and face no consequences. My parents could dismiss my plans and expect me to just accept it. I started making plans to move out. I had about $2,000 saved up from work, which wasn't much but it was something. I looked at apartment listings and tried to figure out if I could afford rent somewhere near campus. The numbers were tight, but I thought I could make it work if I got more hours at the store or found a second job. But here's the thing that really bothers me. I shouldn't have to choose between my family and my education. I shouldn't have to sneak around and make plans behind their backs just to go to college. Other kids my age get support and encouragement from their families. I get obstacles and discouragement. Sullivan has never had to work for anything. He gets new football equipment every season, goes out with friends whenever he wants, and never has to contribute to household expenses. But somehow I'm the selfish one for wanting to better my life through education. My parents keep saying that family comes first, but they only seem to mean that my needs should come last. They want me to sacrifice my future to make their present easier. And they're using Sullivan as their weapon to make sure I stay in line. I know some people will say I should just suck it up and go to community college first, or wait a year and reapply. But I worked so hard for this opportunity. I earned that acceptance letter and that scholarship. Sullivan had no right to destroy it, and my parents had no right to dismiss it. I'm not sure what I'm going to do next. Part of me wants to just leave and figure it out on my own. Part of me hopes they'll come around and realize how wrong they've been. But I don't think that's going to happen. They've shown me exactly where I stand in this family, and it's not where I thought I was. The deadline for confirming my enrollment is getting closer every day. I need to make a decision soon about whether I'm going to college in the fall or staying home to keep funding my family's expenses. Either way, I don't think my relationship with them will ever be the same after this. Update 1: I didn't expect so many people to respond to my original post. A lot of you told me to just go to college anyway and figure it out later. Some of you shared your own stories about unsupportive families. It helped to know I wasn't alone in this situation. Well, I made my decision. I confirmed my enrollment at State University and put down a deposit for campus housing. I used most of my savings to do it, but I figured it was now or never. I didn't tell my family right away because I wanted to have everything locked in first. The day after I confirmed everything, I told my parents what I had done. I thought maybe they would be proud of me for taking initiative and figuring out the finances on my own. I was wrong. My dad went silent for a long time. Then he asked how I planned to pay for everything without their help. I explained that I had the partial scholarship, some financial aid, and I would work part-time once I got to campus. I had already applied for several jobs in the university area. My mom's reaction was worse than my dad's. She started crying and said I was abandoning the family when they needed me most. She brought up every sacrifice they had made for me over the years. She mentioned the time they bought me a used car for my 16th birthday, and how they let me live at home rent-free while I worked. Sullivan, of course, had plenty to say too. He told me I was being ungrateful and selfish. He said I was going to regret leaving home and that I would probably flunk out within a semester anyway. He seemed almost excited about the idea of me failing at college. But here's where things got really bad. 2 days after I told them about my enrollment, I came home from work to find my laptop missing from my room. I asked my parents where it was, and my dad said they had decided to sell it since I wouldn't be needing it anymore if I was so determined to leave home. I couldn't believe it. That laptop had all my college preparation materials on it. My financial aid documents, my class schedule, my housing contract, everything. I had been using it to research textbooks and connect with my future roommate. Without it, I would have a much harder time getting ready for the fall semester. I asked them how they could sell my laptop without asking me first. My mom said that since they had bought it for me as a Christmas gift 2 years ago, it was technically their property. She said they needed the money more than I needed the computer. The worst part was finding out that they sold it to Sullivan's friend for $200. It was worth at least $600, but they practically gave it away just to get rid of it quickly. Sullivan's friend was bragging about the great deal he got, right in front of me. I went to Sullivan's friend's house and asked if I could buy the laptop back from him. He said he had already wiped the hard drive and installed his own stuff on it. All my files were gone. Months of college planning and preparation, wiped out in 2 days. When I confronted my parents about this, they acted like I was overreacting. My dad said I could use the public library computers if I really needed internet access. My mom suggested I could ask to borrow Sullivan's laptop when he wasn't using it for school. Sullivan thought this was hilarious. He made jokes about how I would have to beg him for computer time like a little kid. He said maybe he would let me use it if I did his chores for him. My parents didn't tell him to stop. They just sat there while he made fun of me. That night, I started looking for a different place to stay until college started. I couldn't live in that house for another 3 months knowing how they really felt about me. I reached out to a few friends, but most of them were dealing with their own family situations or didn't have extra space. Then something unexpected happened. My coworker Sarah, 19F, at the grocery store heard about my situation. She lives in a small apartment with her boyfriend, but she offered to let me sleep on their couch until I left for college. She said I could chip in for groceries and utilities, but she wouldn't charge me rent. I was incredibly grateful for her offer, but I wanted to make sure it was really okay with her boyfriend too. She said she had already talked to him about it and he was fine with the arrangement. He had been in a similar situation with his own family a few years earlier. The hardest part was going back home to pack my things. My parents acted like I was making a huge mistake. My mom kept saying I was burning bridges and that I would regret this decision for the rest of my life. My dad just shook his head and muttered about ungrateful kids. Sullivan was the worst of all. He went through my room while I was packing and took several things that he claimed were rightfully his. A jacket he said he had let me borrow, some books he said our parents had bought for both of us, even a phone charger that he insisted was his. I didn't fight him on most of it because I just wanted to get out of there. But when he tried to take my work uniform shirts, I had to put my foot down. I told him those were specifically for my job and he had no use for them. He backed down on that, but he made sure to let me know he was being generous. My parents barely said goodbye when I left. My mom gave me a quick hug and said I could come back anytime if college didn't work out. My dad shook my hand like I was a business acquaintance. Sullivan didn't even look up from his video game. Living with Sarah and her boyfriend has been a huge adjustment, but it's been better than I expected. They treat me like a friend rather than a burden. We split cooking duties and watch movies together in the evenings. It's shown me what a healthy living situation can actually look like. I've been working extra shifts at the grocery store to save up more money for college expenses. Sarah has been helping me rebuild my college preparation material since I lost everything with a laptop. She even let me use her computer to reconnect with my future roommate and catch up on everything I missed. The strangest part is how much calmer I feel now that I'm not living at home. I didn't realize how much stress that environment was causing me until I got away from it. I sleep better, I'm not constantly worried about what Sullivan might do next, and I don't have to listen to my parents complaining about money all the time. My parents have texted me a few times asking when I'm coming home. They seem to think this is just a temporary tantrum and that I'll get over it once I realize how hard it is to live on my own. They don't seem to understand that I'm not coming back. College starts in 10 weeks. I'm nervous about the financial challenges ahead, but I'm also excited about finally pursuing my goals. I know it's going to be difficult, but it has to be better than staying in a situation where my own family actively works against my success. I still can't believe Sullivan destroyed my acceptance letter and faced no consequences for it. I can't believe my parents sold my laptop just to spite me for choosing my own path. But I'm learning that some people will always try to hold you back, even when they're supposed to love and support you. Update 2: College started 3 weeks ago, and I wanted to update everyone who has been following my situation. Things have been both better and worse than I expected. The good news is that I love my classes and I'm doing well academically. My roommate Tom, 18M, is a great guy and we get along really well. The campus is beautiful and I feel like I belong here in a way I never felt at home. I'm taking 5 classes this semester and maintaining good grades despite working 15 hours a week at a campus bookstore. The financial situation is tighter than I hoped, but I'm managing. I eat a lot of ramen and peanut butter sandwiches, but I'm getting by. I found some used textbooks online and I've been using the library for most of my research needs. It's not easy, but I'm making it work. But here's where things got complicated. About 2 weeks after classes started, I got a call from my mom. She was crying and said that Sullivan had been arrested for vandalism. Apparently, he and some friends had spray-painted graffiti on the side of a local business. The owner pressed charges, and now Sullivan is facing fines and community service. My mom begged me to come home and help deal with the situation. She said the family needed to stick together during this difficult time. She also mentioned that they were struggling financially without my monthly contribution to the household expenses. My dad's hours had been cut even more, and they were having trouble making ends meet. Part of me felt bad for them, especially hearing my mom cry on the phone. But I remembered how they had treated me when I needed their support. They had sold my laptop, dismissed my college plans, and let Sullivan destroy my acceptance letter without consequences. Now they wanted me to drop everything and come rescue them. I told my mom I was sorry about Sullivan's situation, but I couldn't come home. I had classes, work responsibilities, and my own financial struggles to deal with. I said I hoped Sullivan learned from this experience and that they could figure out a solution without me. My mom got angry when I refused to come home. She said I was being selfish and that family should always come first. She brought up all the ways they had supported me over the years and said I owed it to them to help now. When I pointed out that they hadn't supported my college goals, she said that was different because college was my choice, not a family emergency. A few days later, my dad called. He was more direct than my mom had been. He said they needed me to either come home or start sending money to help with Sullivan's legal fees. He said it was my responsibility as the older brother to help out when the family was in trouble. I asked him if he remembered selling my laptop right before I left for college. I asked him if he remembered dismissing my acceptance letter and my scholarship. I asked him why it was my responsibility to fix Sullivan's problems when nobody had cared about helping me achieve my goals. My dad got quiet for a long time. Then he said that was ancient history and I needed to focus on the current situation. He said holding grudges wasn't going to help anyone. He couldn't understand why I was being so stubborn about helping my own brother. The calls and texts kept coming for about a week. My mom would send long messages about how disappointed she was in me. She said she had raised me to be a better person than this. She said my grandparents would be ashamed of how I was treating my family. Sullivan even sent me a message. He said he was sorry about tearing up my acceptance letter and he hoped we could put that behind us. But then he went on to say that his current situation was much more serious than some stupid college letter. He said he could end up with a criminal record if our parents couldn't afford a good lawyer. I found it interesting that Sullivan was only apologizing now that he needed something from me. For months, he had acted like destroying my acceptance letter was no big deal. Now suddenly he was sorry, but only because he wanted me to help pay for his legal problems. I didn't respond to Sullivan's message. I also stopped answering my parents' calls after they became increasingly demanding and hostile. They started threatening to cut me off from the family completely if I didn't help with Sullivan's situation. They said I would regret my selfishness when I needed them someday. The weird part is that their threats didn't scare me the way they probably expected. I had already been cut off from real family support when I needed it most. They had already shown me that their love was conditional on me doing what they wanted. Being officially cut off wouldn't be much different from the situation I was already in. My coworker Sarah has been checking in with me regularly since I started college. She knows about my family situation and she's been supportive throughout this whole mess. When I told her about my parents' demands for money, she reminded me that I barely have enough to cover my own expenses. She said it would be crazy for me to sacrifice my education to pay for Sullivan's mistakes. Tom, my roommate, has also been a good friend through all of this. He comes from a supportive family, so he has trouble understanding how parents could treat their child the way mine have treated me. But he's been encouraging me to stay focused on my goals and not let my family drag me down. I've been thinking a lot about what my parents said about family loyalty and responsibility. I wonder if they ever considered their responsibility to support my education and encourage my goals. I wonder if they thought about family loyalty when they sold my laptop or when they let Sullivan destroy my acceptance letter. It seems like their definition of family loyalty only goes one way. I'm supposed to sacrifice my future to solve their problems, but they weren't willing to sacrifice anything to help me pursue my dreams. They want me to put family first, but they put Sullivan's wants ahead of my needs for years. Last week, I found out through a mutual friend that Sullivan ended up pleading guilty to the vandalism charges. He got community service and a fine, but no jail time. My parents managed to handle the situation without my help after all. They never called to let me know how things turned out. I'm doing my best to stay focused on my classes and my job. I have midterm exams coming up next week, and I want to maintain my good grades. I'm also looking into additional scholarship opportunities for next semester since money is still tight. Sometimes I wonder if I made the right choice by cutting contact with my family. But then I remember how they treated me when I needed their support, and I know I did what I had to do. I can't build my future on a foundation of people who actively work against my success. Update 3. I wanted to post one final update since so many people have been following my story and offering support. It's been about 7 months since Sullivan destroyed my acceptance letter, and my life has changed completely. I just finished my first semester of college with a 3.9 GPA. I made the dean's list and I'm on track to maintain my scholarship for next year. I've also been promoted to a supervisor position at the campus bookstore, which means better pay and more flexible hours. Things are still tight financially, but I'm managing much better than I expected. The best part is that I genuinely love what I'm studying. I'm majoring in engineering, and every class feels like a step toward the career I actually want. I can't imagine how different my life would be if I had listened to my family and stayed home to work at the grocery store full time. My living situation has also improved significantly. Tom and I decided to get an apartment together off campus for next year. We found a place that's actually cheaper than the dorms, and we'll have more space and privacy. I've been saving up for the security deposit and first month's rent. As for my family, I haven't spoken to any of them since the phone calls about Sullivan's legal troubles. They stopped trying to contact me after I made it clear I wasn't going to send money or come home to help. I heard through mutual friends that Sullivan finished his community service and got a part-time job to help with household expenses. Apparently, my parents had to take on extra work to make up for the income they lost when I moved out. My mom got a weekend job at a retail store, and my dad picked up some freelance work. It's ironic that they're now doing exactly what I suggested months ago, finding ways to increase their income instead of depending on mine. A few weeks ago, I ran into my Aunt Rebecca, 45F, at a coffee shop near campus. She's my mom's sister, and she lives in the same town as my college. We had never been particularly close, but she recognized me and asked how I was doing. I was hesitant to talk to her at first because I figured my parents had told their version of events to the whole extended family. But Rebecca surprised me. She said she had heard about my situation from my mom, and she wanted me to know that she thought I had made the right choice by going to college. Rebecca told me that my mom had been complaining to everyone about how selfish and ungrateful I was. But Rebecca said she remembered how hard I had worked in high school and how excited I was about getting into college. She said she couldn't understand why my parents weren't proud of me for pursuing my education. She also told me something I hadn't known before. Apparently, Sullivan had been getting into trouble at school for months before the vandalism incident. He had been skipping classes, failing tests, and getting suspended for various behavioral issues. My parents had been so focused on covering up his problems that they saw my college plans as an unwelcome distraction. Rebecca said she thought my parents were afraid that my success would make Sullivan's failures more obvious. If I went to college and built a career, it would highlight how much Sullivan was struggling with basic responsibilities. It was easier for them to discourage me than to deal with Sullivan's real issues. This conversation helped me understand my family's behavior in a new way. It wasn't really about the money, although that was part of it. It was about maintaining a family dynamic where nobody was allowed to outgrow their assigned role. Sullivan was the troubled child who needed protection and excuses. I was the responsible child who was supposed to sacrifice my goals to keep the family stable. Rebecca and I have stayed in touch since that coffee shop meeting. She's become something like a mentor to me. She went back to school later in life to become a nurse, so she understands the challenges of pursuing education despite family opposition. She's been encouraging me to stay focused on my goals. Through Rebecca, I learned that my parents have been telling people I'm struggling in college and will probably drop out soon. They've been predicting my failure to anyone who will listen. Rebecca said she thinks they're hoping I'll fail so they can feel justified in their lack of support. But I'm not failing. If anything, being on my own has made me more motivated and focused. I don't have to listen to constant complaints about money or deal with Sullivan's destructive behavior. I can concentrate on my studies and work without family drama consuming my energy. I've also made some good friends at college who come from healthier family situations. Spending time with them has shown me what normal family relationships look like. Their parents call to check on their grades because they care about their success, not because they want to criticize them. Their siblings celebrate their achievements instead of trying to sabotage them. Last month, I got a letter in the mail from my mom. It was the first direct communication I'd had from my family since the phone calls about Sullivan. The letter was mostly guilt trips and manipulation. She wrote about how much they missed me and how family should forgive and forget past disagreements. But the letter also contained some demands. She wanted me to call Sullivan on his birthday next month. She wanted me to come home for Christmas. She said it was time to put this silly feud behind us and act like a real family again. She didn't apologize for anything they had done, and she didn't acknowledge that they had been wrong to oppose my college plans. I didn't respond to the letter. There's nothing to discuss until they can acknowledge how they treated me. They want me to pretend nothing happened so they can go back to treating me like a resource for them to exploit. They want me to come back and resume my role as the family problem solver and money contributor. I'm not interested in that dynamic anymore. I've learned that I can build a successful life without their support or approval. I've found friends who celebrate my achievements instead of trying to undermine them. I've discovered that I'm capable of more than they ever believed. Next semester, I'm going to apply for a research position with one of my professors. If I get it, it would look great on graduate school applications and it might lead to additional funding opportunities. I'm also considering study abroad programs for my junior year. These are the kinds of opportunities I never would have had if I had stayed home and accepted my family's limited vision for my future. Sullivan was wrong when he said some people aren't meant for higher education. My parents were wrong when they said I was being unrealistic about college. I know my story doesn't have the kind of reconciliation ending that some people prefer. My family and I are still not speaking, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. But sometimes the healthiest choice is to walk away from people who consistently work against your best interests, even if they're related to you. I'm building the life I want on my own terms. I'm pursuing goals that matter to me instead of just fulfilling other people's expectations. And I'm learning that family isn't just about blood relations, it's about the people who support your growth and celebrate your success. My real family now includes Tom, Sarah, Rebecca, and the friends I've made at college. These are the people who have my back when things get tough. These are the people who believe in my potential and encourage me to reach for my goals. That's worth more than any biological relationship that comes with conditions and limitations. Now let's move to the next story. Story 2. I got disowned for bullying my sister. Then we found out she was stealing $100,000 from our parents for drugs. I'm Robert, 30M, and I need to share what just happened with my family. My father, 58M, has disowned me because my sister Sarah, 28F, convinced him to do it. She's always hated me, and now she's finally succeeded in turning our dad against me completely. I grew up in a middle-class family in a suburban neighborhood. My parents, John, 58M, and Linda, 56F, both worked hard to provide for us. Dad was an accountant at a local firm, and Mom was a high school English teacher. They always emphasized the importance of education and hard work. I'm the oldest of 3 siblings. There's me, my brother Mike, 26M, and Sarah. From a young age, it was clear that Sarah was the favorite child. She was born when I was 2 and Mike was on the way. Mom often told the story of how Sarah was a miracle baby because they had trouble conceiving her. As we grew up, the favoritism became more obvious. Sarah got the best of everything: clothes, toys, attention. When I was 10, I desperately wanted a new bike for my birthday. My parents said it was too expensive. But just a few months later, they bought Sarah a brand new bike just because. This pattern continued throughout our childhood. In school, I was always a good student. I worked hard and got mostly A's and B's. Mike was similar, though he struggled a bit more with academics. Sarah, on the other hand, was average at best. But our parents, especially Dad, always made excuses for her. If she got a C, it was because the teacher didn't explain it well enough. If she got in trouble for talking in class, it was because she's just so social and friendly. When I was 16, I got my first part-time job at a local grocery store. I wanted to save up for a car. Mike did the same when he turned 16. We both bought used cars with our own money. Sarah, however, was gifted a brand new car for her 16th birthday. Dad said it was because she needed something safe and reliable. Despite the clear favoritism, I tried not to let it bother me too much. I focused on my studies and my goals. I got into a good college and majored in computer science. After graduation, I landed a job at a tech startup. It was challenging work, but I loved it. During my college years, Sarah's behavior started to become more problematic. She partied a lot and her grades suffered. She changed majors 3 times before dropping out altogether in her junior year. Our parents were disappointed, but they quickly shifted to making excuses for her. College isn't for everyone, they'd say. Sarah just needs to find her passion. After dropping out, Sarah moved back home. She took a part-time job at a clothing store at the mall, but most of her paycheck went to buying new clothes and going out with friends. Our parents didn't charge her rent and continued to pay for her car, insurance, and phone. Meanwhile, I was working 60-hour weeks at my startup job, trying to climb the corporate ladder. I met my wife, Emma, 29F, at a tech conference. We hit it off immediately and got married 2 years later. Emma is a graphic designer and we complement each other well. The tension between Sarah and me really ramped up about a year ago. I had just gotten a big promotion at work, and my parents threw a family dinner to celebrate. Sarah showed up late, already tipsy from drinking with friends beforehand. Throughout dinner, she kept making snide comments about how I thought I was so much better than everyone else because of my job. I tried to ignore her comments, but she wouldn't let up. She started bringing up embarrassing stories from our childhood, clearly trying to make me look bad. Finally, I snapped and told her that maybe if she actually applied herself instead of mooching off our parents, she could be successful too. She burst into tears and ran out of the room. Dad was furious with me for upsetting her. He said I should apologize, but I refused. I was tired of always having to coddle Sarah's feelings while she treated me like crap. Mom tried to play peacemaker, but it was clear she was siding with Sarah too. After that dinner, things got even worse. Sarah started telling our parents that I was bullying her whenever we were around each other. She'd twist my words and actions to make me look bad. If I didn't respond to her text messages right away, she'd tell our parents I was ignoring her. If I disagreed with her opinion on something, she'd say I was belittling her. I could tell my dad was starting to believe her lies. He'd call me up to lecture me about being nicer to my sister. When I tried to explain my side, he'd accuse me of making excuses. Mom would just sigh and say she wished we could all get along. The final straw came last week. Sarah told our dad that she'd overheard me telling Mike that I thought our parents were idiots for continuing to support Sarah financially. This was a complete lie. I never said anything like that. Mike and I had talked about our frustration with the situation, but we'd never insulted our parents. But Sarah must have been pretty convincing, because my dad called me up in a rage. He yelled at me for a good 20 minutes, saying he was sick of me looking down on the family and treating Sarah badly. He accused me of being jealous of Sarah and trying to turn everyone against her. He said I was ungrateful for everything they'd done for me. I tried to defend myself, but he wouldn't listen. He just kept yelling about how I betrayed the family. Finally, he said the words I never thought I'd hear: "You're no longer my son. Don't bother coming around anymore. You're dead to me." I was in shock. I couldn't believe my father would disown me over Sarah's lies. I tried calling my mom to talk some sense into him, but she just cried and said there was nothing she could do. She said Dad was set in his decision and that maybe if I apologized to Sarah, things would blow over. But I refused to apologize for something I didn't do. I called Mike to see if he would back me up, but he was hesitant. He said he believed me, but he was afraid to speak up against Sarah and risk getting disowned too. He has a wife and a baby on the way, so I understand his reluctance to rock the boat. It's been a few days now, and I'm still reeling. Emma is furious on my behalf and wants me to cut ties with the whole family. She says they've never appreciated me and that we're better off without their drama. Part of me agrees with her, but it's hard to think about never speaking to my parents again. I've tried reaching out to a few extended family members to explain the situation, but most of them seem to be taking Sarah's side. My Aunt Carol, Dad's sister, even called to tell me how disappointed she was in my behavior. It seems Sarah has been spreading her lies to the whole family. I don't know what to do. Part of me wants to fight back and prove Sarah is lying. I could show them my phone records to prove I never had the conversation she claims to have overheard. I could point out all the times in the past where she's manipulated situations to her advantage. But another part of me just wants to walk away from all the drama. I'm tired of feeling like I have to constantly prove my worth to my own family. Emma and I are trying to start our own family. She's actually 12 weeks pregnant, though we haven't told anyone yet because of all this drama. Maybe it would be better to focus on our future and let go of the past. I've thought about writing a letter to my parents explaining everything, but I'm not sure if they'd even read it. I've considered confronting Sarah directly, but I'm afraid she'd just twist my words and use them against me again. The whole situation is affecting my work and my relationship with Emma. I'm having trouble concentrating at my job, and I find myself getting irritable with Emma over small things. She's been incredibly supportive, but I know it's wearing on her too. I've thought about suggesting family therapy, but I doubt Sarah or my dad would agree to it. They both seem to think I'm the only problem. And to be honest, I'm not sure I want to sit in a room and hash this out with them. The thought of it just makes me feel exhausted. Has anyone else dealt with toxic family dynamics like this? How did you handle it? Did you try to clear your name or did you just walk away? I could really use some advice on how to move forward from here. I never thought I'd be in a position where I was cut off from my family, and I'm struggling to come to terms with it. Update 1: It's been about 2 weeks since my last post, and a lot has happened. First, I want to thank everyone for the supportive comments and messages. It really helped to know I wasn't alone in dealing with difficult family situations. After taking some time to process everything and reading through all the advice, I decided to try one last time to talk to my dad. I figured I owed it to myself to at least attempt to clear the air before potentially cutting ties for good. I sent him a text asking if we could meet up in person to talk things through calmly. To my surprise, he agreed. We arranged to meet at a coffee shop near his work during his lunch break. I was nervous all morning, trying to plan out what I would say. Emma gave me a pep talk before I left, reminding me to stay calm and stick to the facts. When I arrived at the coffee shop, Dad was already there. He looked tired and older than I remembered. At first, things were tense and awkward. We made small talk about the weather and his work for a few minutes before I finally brought up the reason for our meeting. I calmly explained my side of things. I told him how hurt I was that he would believe Sarah's lies without even asking for my perspective. I pointed out all the times in the past where Sarah had twisted the truth to make herself look better. I even showed him my phone records to prove I hadn't had the conversation Sarah claimed to overhear. To my shock, my dad actually started to tear up. He admitted that deep down, he knew Sarah could be manipulative sometimes. But he said he always felt like he had to protect her because she was more fragile than Mike and me. He talked about how Sarah had struggled with anxiety and depression in high school, which was news to me, and how he and Mom always worried about her self-esteem. We ended up talking for over 2 hours. Dad opened up about a lot of things I never knew. He talked about the pressure he felt to provide for the family and how he often worked overtime when we were kids to make ends meet. He admitted that he probably overcompensated with Sarah because he felt guilty about working so much when she was young. By the end of our conversation, Dad apologized for disowning me so hastily. He said he'd been stressed about work and other issues, and he'd taken it out on me unfairly. He promised to talk to Sarah and get to the bottom of her lies. He even suggested that we all sit down as a family to hash things out. I left feeling cautiously optimistic. It seemed like maybe we could start to repair our relationship. Dad hugged me before we parted ways, something he hadn't done in years. I called Emma on the way home to tell her how it went, and she was happy for me but warned me not to get my hopes up too high. That optimism was short-lived, though. The very next day, I got a call from Mike. He was upset and told me that Sarah had found out about my meeting with Dad. Apparently, Dad had mentioned it to Mom, who then told Sarah, thinking it might encourage her to reconcile with me too. But Sarah didn't take it well at all. According to Mike, she had a complete meltdown at the house. She screamed at our parents for hours, accusing them of always loving me more, even though she was the one who needed them. She brought up every perceived slight from our childhood, twisting events to make herself the victim in every situation. Mike said Sarah threatened to move out and never speak to them again if they didn't cut me off completely. She said I was manipulating them and trying to turn them against her. She even threatened to hurt herself if they kept in contact with me. Our parents, of course, caved to her demands. My mom called me in tears, saying they had no choice but to side with Sarah. She said Sarah was in a fragile state and they were afraid of what she might do if they didn't support her. She begged me to understand and to give Sarah space. I was beyond frustrated. Just when I thought we were making progress, Sarah managed to manipulate the situation again. I told my mom I was done trying. If they wanted to enable Sarah's behavior, that was their choice. But I wouldn't stick around to be her punching bag anymore. The next few days were chaotic. Sarah started posting on social media about how I was an abusive brother who was trying to turn the family against her. She shared childhood photos with long captions about how I'd always bullied her and made her feel worthless. Some extended family members and old friends started messaging me, asking what was going on. I was tempted to fight back and tell my side of the story publicly. I wanted to expose Sarah's lies and manipulations. But Emma convinced me it wasn't worth it. She said engaging would only give Sarah more ammunition and drag out the drama. She reminded me that the people who really mattered would see through Sarah's lies. Instead, I decided to focus on the people who really mattered. I reached out to Mike and told him I understood if he needed to keep his distance to avoid drama with our parents. But I made it clear that I'd always be there for him if he needed me. He was grateful and promised to keep me updated on what was happening with the family. I also called my grandmother, my dad's mom, to explain the situation. She's always been a voice of reason in the family. To my relief, she believed me about Sarah's lies. She shared some stories about how Sarah had caused drama in the family before, even when she was young. She promised to talk to my dad and try to make him see reason. For now, I'm taking a step back from the whole situation. I've blocked Sarah on all social media and told my parents I need space. It hurts to be estranged from them, but I realize I can't keep subjecting myself to this toxic dynamic. Emma and I are focusing on preparing for our baby's arrival. We've started setting up the nursery and looking into childbirth classes. We've decided that unless things change dramatically with my family, we won't be involving them in our child's life. It's a hard decision, but we feel it's necessary for our own peace of mind and for the well-being of our child. I've also started seeing a therapist to work through my feelings about all of this. It's helping me process the anger and hurt, and giving me tools to set healthier boundaries. Emma and I are also doing some couples counseling to make sure we're on the same page about everything and to strengthen our relationship as we prepare to become parents. At work, I've had to have a difficult conversation with my boss about what's going on. The stress was affecting my performance, and I wanted to be upfront about it. Thankfully, he was understanding and has allowed me to adjust my workload a bit while I deal with everything. I'm trying to stay positive and focus on the good things in my life. Emma and I have been spending more time with her family, who have been incredibly supportive through all of this. We've also been reconnecting with old friends and building a strong support network outside of my biological family. It's not easy, and there are days when I still feel angry and hurt about everything that's happened. But I'm trying to take it one day at a time and remember that I can't control anyone's actions but my own. I'll update again if anything significant changes. Thanks again to everyone for the support and advice. It's made a real difference in helping me navigate this difficult situation. Update 2. It's been about 3 months since my last update, and I wanted to share some surprising developments. First, some good news. Emma and I welcomed our baby boy, Jack, into the world last month. He's healthy and perfect, and being a dad is the most amazing experience of my life. The first few weeks have been a whirlwind of sleepless nights and diaper changes, but we're slowly finding our rhythm. Now, on to the family drama. About a month ago, I got an unexpected call from my brother Mike. He was upset and said he needed to talk to me urgently. We met up at a park near his house, and he dropped a bombshell on me. Apparently, Mike had been doing some digging into Sarah's past behavior. He'd always had suspicions that she was hiding something, but he could never prove it. Well, he finally found some concrete evidence of her lies and manipulations. Mike discovered that Sarah had been stealing money from our parents for years. She'd been taking blank checks from our dad's checkbook and forging his signature to withdraw cash. She'd also opened several credit cards in our mom's name and maxed them out. But it gets worse. Mike found out that Sarah had been using the money to fund a secret drug habit. He showed me text messages he'd found on her old phone, which she'd left at our parents' house, arranging drug deals and talking about how much she owed her dealer. I was shocked. I knew Sarah was irresponsible with money, but I never thought she'd stoop to outright theft and drug use. Mike showed me copies of bank statements and credit card bills as proof. The amount she'd stolen over the years was staggering, easily over $100,000. Mike was torn about what to do with this information. On one hand, he wanted to expose Sarah's crimes and finally prove to our parents that she'd been lying and manipulating them. On the other hand, he was worried about how they would react and if it would tear the family apart even more. We spent hours discussing what to do. We both felt our parents deserved to know the truth, but we were concerned about how it would affect them emotionally and financially. We also worried about Sarah's reaction and if she might do something drastic if confronted. After a lot of back and forth, we decided that our parents needed to know. We agreed to confront Sarah together and give her a chance to come clean before we told our parents ourselves. We invited Sarah to meet us at a restaurant, saying we wanted to try to work things out as siblings. When she showed up, she seemed nervous but put on a fake smile. We sat down and ordered drinks, making small talk for a few minutes. Then, Mike pulled out the folder of evidence and laid it on the table. Sarah's face went pale. We calmly explained what we discovered and asked her to explain herself. To our surprise, Sarah broke down immediately. She admitted to everything, the stealing, the drug use, all of it. She said it had started small, just taking a little money here and there to buy weed. But it escalated quickly as she got into harder drugs. She swore she'd meant to pay it all back before anyone found out. She said she'd been trying to get clean but kept relapsing. She begged us not to tell our parents, saying it would destroy them. We told Sarah she had two choices. Either she could tell our parents herself and agree to get help, or we would go to them with the evidence. She pleaded with us to give her more time, but we stood firm. In the end, Sarah agreed to come clean to our parents. Mike and I went with her for support and to make sure she told the whole truth. The conversation with our parents was one of the hardest things I've ever been through. Mom couldn't stop crying. Dad looked like he'd aged 10 years in an instant. They were hurt, angry, and completely blindsided. Sarah promised to get help for her addiction issues and to pay back every cent she stole. Our parents said they would support her getting treatment, but that she couldn't live at home anymore. They also decided to press charges for the identity theft and fraud, hoping it would force Sarah to take her recovery seriously. As for me, my dad pulled me aside after everything came out and apologized profusely for not believing me before. He admitted that he'd enabled Sarah's behavior for far too long and that he should have seen the signs. He asked if we could try to rebuild our relationship, and I agreed to give it a shot. It's been a difficult few weeks as everyone processes this revelation. Sarah is in a 90-day inpatient rehab program now. My parents are in therapy to deal with their emotions and learn how to set better boundaries. They're also working with a financial advisor to figure out how to recover from the financial damage Sarah caused. Mike and I are doing our best to support our parents while also maintaining some distance for our own mental health. It's a delicate balance, but we're managing. We've been taking turns checking in on them and helping with practical things like grocery shopping and yard work. I'm still processing my own feelings about everything. Part of me is relieved that the truth finally came out and that I've been vindicated. But another part is sad that it took something so extreme for my family to see Sarah's true colors. I'm angry about all the years of manipulation and the stress it caused me and Emma. Speaking of Emma, she's been incredibly supportive through all of this. She's encouraged me to take things slow with my family and not rush into forgiveness just because the truth came out. She's also been amazing with Jack, taking on extra baby duties when I've had to deal with family stuff. For now, I'm focusing on my wife and son. My parents have expressed interest in meeting their grandson, but I'm taking things slowly. We've agreed to a short visit next month, with clear boundaries in place. Trust takes time to rebuild, and my priority is protecting my own little family. I'll update again if there are any major developments. Thanks again to everyone who's followed along with this crazy situation. Update 3. It's been about 6 months since this whole saga began, and I wanted to give one final update on where things stand now. Sarah completed her 90-day rehab program and is now living in a halfway house. She's attending regular therapy and Narcotics Anonymous meetings. From what Mike tells me, she seems to be taking her recovery seriously. She's got a part-time job at a local diner and is slowly starting to pay back some of the money she stole. I haven't had any direct contact with Sarah yet. She sent a few messages through Mike apologizing and asking to meet, but I'm not ready for that. Maybe someday, but for now, I need to focus on my own healing and my family. My parents are still dealing with the financial fallout of Sarah's actions. They've had to refinance their house and dip into their retirement savings to cover the debts. It's been hard on them, but they're working through it. They've also had to explain the situation to some extended family members, which has been humiliating for them. As for my relationship with them, things are slowly improving. We've had several long, honest conversations about the past and how we can build a healthier family dynamic going forward. They've apologized multiple times for how they treated me and for enabling Sarah's behavior for so long. They've met Jack a few times now. The first visit was awkward, but seeing them with him has helped ease some of the tension between us. They're trying hard to be better grandparents than they were parents. Mom has been knitting baby clothes and Dad even built a rocking chair for the nursery. Mike and I have grown closer through all of this. We talk almost daily now and have become each other's main support system within the family. It's nice to finally have the kind of brotherly relationship I always wanted. He and his wife are expecting their second child now, and we're looking forward to our kids growing up together. Emma has been my rock through all of this. She's encouraged me to set boundaries with my family while also giving them a chance to make amends. I don't know how I would have gotten through this without her. We're settling into parenthood and despite the lack of sleep, we're happier than ever. Work has been going well. I got another promotion last month, partly because of how I handled myself professionally during all the personal stress. We're looking at buying a house now, something that seemed impossible when all this started. Looking back, I never could have predicted how things would unfold when I made that first post 6 months ago. It's been a roller coaster of emotions, but I feel like I've come out stronger on the other side. I've learned a lot about standing up for myself, the importance of honesty, and how to break toxic family patterns. While I wish things hadn't gotten so extreme, I'm grateful for the growth and clarity this experience has brought me. To anyone else dealing with difficult family dynamics, my advice would be to trust your gut, set firm boundaries, and surround yourself with people who truly support you. It's not easy, but it's worth it for your own peace of mind. Thank you all again for the support and advice throughout this journey. I won't be updating again unless something major changes, but know that your kind words and insights have made a real difference in my life.